there everybody, it's Mark Crilly. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today, in honor of Christmas, we're going to be drawing a reindeer. I'm going to add this to my list of animal drawing videos and put a link in the description at the bottom. But let me go ahead and show you how I put this box in place to get us started. It is 4.5 inches on all sides. That works out to, in centimeters, should have thought this out in advance, a little over 11. Maybe 11.5 centimeters, and then just get a line across the middle. That'll help you for placing some of these basic lines. Speaking of which, let's go ahead and get going with some basic lines for drawing the head of the reindeer. Alright, so you can see we've got this line starting right here at the base of that center vertical line, and that can help you place this. Notice this sort of letter B shape that you get over here. The head is turned into a 3/4 point of view, and that's how you get this unusual contour. I would say this is about maybe, what, 3/4 of the distance there between this bottom line and the center line. And we're going to get into drawing the eyes and the other details of the face in just a moment, but I thought I might go ahead right now while we have the whole square in view. I'm going to go ahead and put the two main kind of trunks of the antlers in place. Alright, so you can see that it's kind of a gentle S shape on this side, a gentle curve there. Both of these starting near the top of the head rather than any further down on the side. You got to leave space for the ears. And what I'm going to do now, just quickly in time lapse, is add like 4 of these sort of smaller horns that come off of the what I call the sort of trunk, you know, imagining this is like a tree. Each one of these is going to have 4 smaller antler horns coming off of it. So let's go ahead and do that, and then after we finished that, we can zoom in and start getting into the details of the rest of the head. Alright, now you don't have to get too uptight about getting all of this in exactly the same location. I think the truth is every reindeer has probably slightly different antlers, and this is based, you know, on different photographs that I looked at. I saw at least one photo that had this type of a formation. It becomes tricky because when the horns are turned in a slightly different direction, you end up having, they almost look like they're a different shape, and you know, who knows, they probably are slightly different from one, even from one to the other. All right, now that we've got that in place, and that's really about as far as it goes in terms of detail, let's refocus the camera, zoom in on the head, and I suppose the first thing we ought to do is go ahead and draw the ears. Okay, so I thought I'd go ahead and, while I was at it, draw the neck here, just a couple of lines. This one comes conveniently right off of that central line again, and then a line for the back. But as for the ears, fairly good size of these ears. I wonder how that compares with ordinary deer. I guess I'd have to go and do a comparison. But notice the angle that they're pointing at, sort of like a 45-degree angle, not coming straight out to the side, not going straight up, but just off at that type of an angle. I think it's time now, though, to draw the eyes. And one thing I noticed, I was surprised at how close the eyes are to the base of the ears. So there you see, as I said, quite close to the base of the ears, very, very widely spaced. And there are a lot of aspects I was surprised to find as I studied the head of the deer. There are a lot of aspects that remind me a little bit of cows or calves. And I do wonder if there's, you know, evolutionarily some sort of connection there between the two. But let's go ahead now and draw what I always call the snoutel region, this area of the nose. We're going to get a sort of a ball shape here in place, as well as the nostrils, and just one single line for the mouth. Alright, so we've got the nose area, the lines all in place. Notice that the nose itself is quite wide, it seems to me, certainly compared to a dog or a wolf or other animals like that. And as is typical in a lot of mammals, the nose has sort of like slits in the front, but it seems designed to pull air in from the sides. So then notice that shape there. And unfortunately, the mouth to a human looks like it's frowning. But you are certainly, it's within your rights to draw a happy-looking reindeer if that's what you prefer. Now we're going to knock it off with all the time lapse. We're going to tell old man time lapse to go get some eggnog. Oh, I do love eggnog. and we probably won't be having him back until I get to the shading. So kick back, and I'm going to draw a little bit of a pattern here around each one of the eyes. We're going to try to do a lot of this part of it real time. A white area that I noticed, at least in photos of some types of deer, that is around each one of the eyes, above and below. And so getting that into place will help us when later on, when we get into the shading. There is an area up here, I'll go ahead and sort of hint at it right now. There's this darker area that almost reminds me a little bit of eyebrows in a way. But that's going to be something we'll get to later. The ears of the deer, most of the photos I saw were there's a sort of a dark area in the center with the lighter fur on the outside. So I'll just go ahead and maybe quickly do that. We can refine this shading later on. And then in terms of the sort of bridge of the nose, you're going to get we've got one line in place already, but I think you want to kind of get a secondary line in here to guide you with your shading, and that shading is also going to help to convey the structure of that snout. I'll go ahead and add a little bit of that darkness that I was talking about, the sort of eyebrow-like darkness. And again, I think different breeds are going to have different patterns, but I noticed a lot of darkness around the eye, back behind the eye, and sort of heading up into the ear in a lot of the photos that I studied. Now, if you want the eyes to look shiny, it's always a good idea to sort of rope off a highlight area. You make a tiny little circle like that, and then you just go really dark everywhere except for that little dot, and you're going to end up with a nice, shiny-looking reindeer eye. Now let's go ahead and shift down to drawing the nose. This whole area where I had the nostrils definitely is going to get pretty much jet black. And I noticed, interestingly, just above here in the upper lip, a sort of a dark area, as well as just below that line of the mouth, maybe the lower lip is visible quite in a dark way. You know, you get sort of dark shading. And what I'm going to do here, just ahead of our time-lapse section at the end, is just put in a little extra darkness here. I think it helps to define that structure there of the nose. Now, it helps to have some sense of the direction that the fur grows, and those of you who've watched some of my other animal videos, certainly among mammals, there is seemingly a pattern here of the nose, the hair just across the nose sort of going up vertically toward the forehead, and then as you head up into this area, you can sort of have each one of these lines is sort of flowing across the surface of the forehead in a way that's accurate to how the fur grows, but also helpful in terms of drawing for conveying that structure. And I'm going to go ahead and continue shading here in such a way that you might not even see the difference between the fur and the base of the antlers as they grow out. Now, I saw a wide variety of types of antlers, some of them looking very much like horns and kind of pale in color, but the type that I'm going for here is more of like a dark brown, and there's almost like a light coating of fur, like peach fuzz or something, on some of these reindeer's antlers. And of course, if you want to give the red nose to Rudolph, feel free to do that. I'm not going to be doing that today. We're going to go a little more realistic. I'm going to refine this area here just a little bit in terms of the contour. And this part really does sort of remind me a lot of cows in terms of the eye being really sort of almost popping out. You can really see in the contour how the eye is sort of held in place and kind of popping out on the side of the head. Certainly in this 3/4 point of view, you're going to get a good view of that. Again, this area here, different breeds probably have different coloring, different patterns, but you'll notice that the direction of my pencil is always sort of flowing across in a way that makes sense in terms of how the fur would grow coming off of the snout. Technically, I don't think it's called a snout, but it's a habit now. I can't stop calling it the snoutal region. And we're pretty close to the end of what we need to do here in terms of the basic shading. Of course, I'm going to be refining a lot of this, but let's go ahead and give you some pointers about adding the suggestion of fur across the neck. And here I would say, see if you can begin to get a sense of the roundedness of the neck, even if the shading is not really beautiful at the outset. Give yourself some parameters in terms of how these lines going in a curving left to right pattern will be able to help convey the shape. I think as an artist you're always doing your best to have these lines convey the shape by having them flow across in a way that makes sense in terms of, like you understand that the shape of the neck is sort of rounded right in this area. Now, of course, we're not giving it zebra stripes or anything, but I always find that just to begin with, getting something down that reminds you as the artist of that shape is a helpful thing to get into place. And of course, as you go back to the sort of spine area, that also maybe adding a little bit of curved lines there can help you in terms of reminding you how to add the shading and get that a little more rounded looking, a little more three-dimensional. And I do believe that that brings us to the end of this sort of real-time section of getting all the lines in place. I hope you won't mind if I speed through the refinement stage, the final polishing phase, all in time lapse. You're going to see that the antlers themselves really don't have too much in terms of detail. Certainly when viewed from a distance, that they are more or less just like a black contour anyway. But I'll go ahead and refocus the camera. We'll speed through all of this in time lapse, and then I can be back with a few final words. Alright, well, you can see I did end up adding a fair amount of modeling to the antlers, just out of sort of artistic instinct more than anything that I saw in photographs. But certainly the old trusty black Prismacolor, black colored pencil is very helpful for, darkening in the eyes, heightening the contrast throughout the entire illustration. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Certainly I will be doing more animal videos in the year ahead. I just want to say a quick Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all of you, and to let you know that with this new year I'm finally going to be launching my Patreon. Look for that early in January, with me offering all kinds of goodies to those of you who choose to support me. More about that later. But for now, let me just say thank you to anyone who supported me by getting any of my books, like My Last Summer with Cass, my latest graphic novel, the Mastering Manga Series 1, 2, and 3, and of course my very latest book, The Ultimate Book of Drawing Hands. Really cannot say thank you enough to all of you who choose to support me by getting those books. But let's go ahead and lay down this pencil. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.